Hello, Jimmy here. I did a video a little while back about King and Conqueror, the new HBO BBC TV series about 1066 and all that. And the views have gone up since the series came out. That was just looking at the trailer and the costuming. And the costuming remains not great from having watched the rest of the series in double speed. They've really crammed 13 years into 8 episodes, and they get some of the history wrong as well. The idea that William and Harold met each other as early as they did is kind of not how it would have worked. The age difference isn't really shown because we go 13 years, and when you go from sort of teenage to 20s or 20s to early 40s, that really shows. And none of that's really shown in the TV series between William and Harold. Other characters do age, which is bizarre. But that doesn't look great. We have English noblemen dressing like this, and they all look really peasanty. All of the Anglo-Saxons are just wearing browns and like baby puke yellow. And that really kind of barbarianizes the Anglo-Saxons in this period. They would have been beautifully dressed. The noblemen especially would have dressed wonderfully fashionably in well-tailored tunics and jewellery. They would have been wearing silk, they would have been wearing silver, and the warriors of Hastings would have looked more like this. This is how some of my reenactor friends depict 11th century warriors, and just look how good they look. Look how colourful they are. Look at the variety of shades, look at the accessories, look at the colours on the shields. Instead, in King and Conqueror, the Battle of Hastings looks like this, and we can all drain the saturation of our footage if we want to make things look bleak and grim and sad and dark. But if you don't do that, and you just show things how they are, the world is a much more colourful place. And one of the things that would really have helped with that is if this hadn't been filmed in Iceland. No shade to Iceland. I love Iceland. I am desperate to go to visit Iceland. I am absolutely aching to go and see the place. But Iceland has way fewer trees today than Anglo-Saxon England had 1,000 years ago. Hell, England has way fewer trees today than England did 1,000 years ago, and that just breaks my heart to think about it. There should be more trees on our uplands. All across Great Britain, in fact. Start rewilding. I'm looking at you. You! Do it! Plant a tree now! It's not blood, don't worry. It's ink. Oh, hi. You find me relaxing after a day of editing and filming by playing June's Journey, who are sponsoring this video. Now, June's Journey is a game. It's a free game, and you can download it by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen. If you like the idea of being transported back to 1920s New York with all of its glitz and glamour, but all of its mystery as well, I think you'll enjoy June's Journey. You follow the protagonist, June Parker, and help her to unravel the mystery of the murder of her sister and brother-in-law by playing hidden object games. You get these beautifully rendered artistic backgrounds in scenes within the story that allow you to unlock more of the mystery. But there's also a fun decorating element to this game. So if you like things like decorating gardens or garden design, there's an element of the game where you get to design and decorate your country estate on an island. It's really good fun, and you can also join with other people to play it. You can join clubs, you can take part in special occasions within the game that lets you get extra items and that sort of thing. It's a really enjoyable way to unwind after I've had a day of editing, and if that sounds like fun to you, and you like the idea of a murder mystery with a compelling female protagonist, then I think you'll really enjoy June's Journey. So download it for free now by clicking on the link in the description, or by scanning the QR code on screen, and get yourself June's Journey and enjoy it. The costuming remains pretty brutal. The warriors of the Battle of Hastings are depicted wearing stuff like this, and I don't know what this is supposed to be, because that's not how helmets work. They also wedge one onto this dude's head, and I'm so sorry for this performer having to wear this stuff. It just makes me feel so sad for the performers. Harold wears a silly helmet, which I've already discussed. The eyebrows are fun, but the nasal is missing, and that's obviously because we want to see his face. But it doesn't actually cover that much of your face, and if Bloom can wear a nasal helmet in Kingdom of Heaven a couple of decades ago, there's no excuse. William doesn't wear a helmet at any point, even though there's a really fun story about Hastings where the Normans are retreating and William takes his helmet off and says, "I'm still alive, follow me, Texae!" And that would have been really cool, but instead he's just wearing a badly fitted male coif, which is sad. all of the women's costuming is kind of... No effort has been made in the women's costuming. We have backlaced... it's not even a corset, it's like a backlaced shift, which is an interesting choice. And fitted garments would have been worn in the period, but kind of not in this way. There are also some weird, like, cross-laced, what look like suede bodies, and the idea of that being a 11th century Anglo-Saxon women's garment is just bizarre to me. That's not what they were looking like at the time. They looked like this. We have reenactors who do a way better job than this, probably way cheaper than the wardrobing budget for this show was. We have things like this guy, and I'm not going to lie to you, I mostly watched this at double speed and with the sound turned off because I just didn't care and I know the actual story. But whoever this Norman lord is supposed to be, he's wearing like a 20th century dressing gown and cravat look, and he looks very louche. But he's missing the cigarette holder. That's all that's missing, is the cigarette holder. And this guy would look great in like a 1930s play. Like, what's this supposed to be? I will give them some partial credit because it is nice to see the kind of difference in architecture here where we have large buildings built by the Anglo-Saxons looking very different to large buildings built by the Normans. The Normans did introduce some architectural revolutions to Britain, things like the Motte and Bailey Castle. They've kind of oversimplified it slightly, and once again, this is a show where none of the interiors look very inviting, except for the tents. The tents in this show look lovely. Like, I would camp in these for weeks on end without any problems. Look at this beautifully carved bed. Look at these gorgeous, colourful hangings. And now look at how they've decorated a palace for the coronation of the King of England. Also, why the King of England is just wearing a tabard and a rock, I don't know. It's a very bizarre costuming choice. And I know he's meant to be the weak Edward the Confessor, even though we have plentiful evidence that he wasn't weak, because that serves the narrative. I'm also fairly sure he didn't batter his mother to death with the crown of England. Gold is quite a soft metal, so it's not ideal. If you've played Minecraft, you know that gold tools and weapons wear faster than iron tools and weapons, and that is because gold is a soft metal, and so it isn't very good for use as, you know, a murder weapon. How heavy do you think this thing is going to be, and why isn't it dented after it's bashed in a skull? Anywho, there is one shot that I really like from this series, and it is a single shot. It's like a 5-second shot of the spears coming together on Senlac Hill for the Battle of Hastings, and you see this hesitant, slow advance to engage the enemy. It's not just Vikings without shields running pell-mell at each other, Game of Thrones style. This is an actual early medieval shield wall to shield wall combat where nobody really wants to be doing this, but they have to be doing this, and they're all like, and it looks great. It should be more colourful. The Anglo-Saxons shouldn't all have the same design on their shields. That's stupid. How would they do that? But for actual sort of squint your eyes and just look at the things coming together, the weapons, check it out side by side with a shot again of some reenactors doing this. And you can see that somebody cared about this shot. And I have great respect for that. So whoever was DOPing this ep, really well played on that shot. Massive, massive, massive props to you. The weird gaps in the chainmail for the archers, that's just stupid. Don't do that. Also, we have the Bayeux embroidery. The Bayeux tapestry shows us the fashions of the time, up to and including people like Bishop Odo, who features in the show and rides into battle, but is basically dressed as a crusader from 100 years later. And it's kind of bizarre, because one of the great things about the Bayeux tapestry is it shows the confusion of battle, where everyone's kind of dressed the same, no one's in a uniform. But in the TV show, all the Normans are wearing black or blue, because that is the Norman colours, and all the Anglo-Saxons are wearing brown and have these helmets. Which is weird. I don't really understand why we still have to see this. And I know some of the costume houses where these costumes came from. I'm actually fairly sure some of these costumes have been used in a theatre production I was once in, but it doesn't look great. Series like House of the Dragon do things better than this historical drama, where we have brooches at the shoulder and cloaks. No one in this show is wearing an early medieval cloak the right way. They're all wearing them with these weird, like, sewn tabs across them, so you can't unbrooch them and then really easily drape them over a line and brush them clean. You would have to unpick all of these stitches, right? And then you would be able to lay it flat, and then you would be able to clean it. But if you need to clean this cloak, or just like wear it as a blanket or use it as a pillow, all of this unnecessary construction makes that more difficult. Poncho. So the other costuming thing that I noticed in this show is that all the Normans, all the Anglo-Saxons are wearing browns, and they're wearing wool-ish, and they're wearing yellows, and there's a smattering of colour here and there. The women who are unmarried have their heads uncovered. The women who are engaged kind of have half a headscarf, which is bizarre. Nobody is just wearing a headscarf with a fillet, and Pins and Weevils has done a great short video that shows you what a woman in the period would have worn on her head. And it's so easy and it's so cheap. It's literally like 2/3 of a metre of linen or cotton linen look would get you this. And nobody's wearing that, and it's bizarre. The women in this show are more present than in the historical chronicles, which is great, but the costuming is so generic. It is so generic for the women in this show. Like, they could be fantasy princess. This show could be set in an alternate 14th century. It doesn't read as 11th century Anglo-Saxon. This is a period where fashion is kind of well established. We sort of know what their fashions looked like. Historical reenactors and experimental archaeologists have been working on this for a long time. Anyone who's read Gail Owen Crocker's books about Anglo-Saxon England know that centuries before this, fashions and textiles were really complex and well thought through, and clothing was made to measure for the person. So it's strange to see people wearing stuff like this, but then also this collar gorget thing. I don't know what that is. I don't know how it works. I'm not sure if that's a misinterpretation of like a headscarf that's then thrown over the shoulder. I'm not sure what's going on. This is really bizarre. None of the married women have their heads covered, which is a problem societally in this period. In this period, in Anglo-Saxon society, in Christian society in general, women cover their hair a lot. Like, there are lots of hair coverings, and no, there isn't anything specifically in the Bible that technically says women, when married, must cover their hair at all times, but that was a wide interpretation of biblical texts, and it was expected of women in many cultures to cover their hair. And this is just me. I think it looks great. I think that a headscarf and a fillet is a strong look, and for queens and princesses, that could be a gold band. We have the wills of Anglo-Saxon women who give the gold fillet that goes around the head in their wills, and that would have been a wonderful opportunity to just do a little something different. I appreciate the way the churchmen in this are some of the most colourfully dressed, and yes, priests and bishops would have had access to resources that many people didn't have. But there's no real reason why Bishop Odo should be dressed way more spectacularly than Duke William of Normandy, for example. And I like the way that the Anglo-Saxon Archbishop and Bishop Odo have differently shaped mitres. Both of the mitres are huge and a bit silly. But one of the reasons why the Normans got approval to invade England is they were going to Romanize the English church. And so we have the papal banner, which is a lovely choice. Tip my hat to that, where we have the Roman banner, the papal banner that gives William's approval. It shows it, displays it to everybody, for everyone to see that this is an army under God and that the Pope and the Church approve of this invasion. Again, tip my hat to that. That's a lovely choice. What's not great is how little effort has gone into the coronations. Like, the coronation of the King of England was a massive event, and this kind of just looks like a school play. Like, they could muster more people than this for a coronation. I know that we're trying to barbarianize the period and show that towns were a lot smaller than they are today, and that is true, and that's fine, but you could whistle up a couple dozen more background for this. Like, you've got HBO and BBC money. And that's part of the issue, is it feels cheaply done. This show feels really, really cheap. It feels like it was done with every penny being scraped. And I know that that's often the case in TV and film. I know that the costuming department and the wardrobe designers have very little influence when the director comes up to them and says no. But I also think that this should have been 3 series. I think we should have had an initial series of Edward the Confessor being crowned and all of the machinations and the politics of him and his mother, because they've tried to shoehorn that in. And that could have been made into, I would say, a series on its own. You could then have a second series of when he dies, and Harold Hardrada, Harold III of Norway, and William the Conqueror, all of their political machinations, and then maybe a third series, or just a second series finale that's double length, where we have the Battle of Hastings. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not good at pitching particularly TV stuff. I've only had a couple of things accepted here and there. But it does feel super, super rushed. We have to talk about the Norwegians. So in this period, Harald III Hardrada of Norway has unified Norway. He's Christianized Norway by building churches everywhere. Yes, it's a syncretic Christianism and there are elements of the Old Norse religion still involved, but that's how the Romans got people to worship Jupiter. He was building churches, and lots of them. He also tries to get Denmark under the Norwegian crown and then has his eyes on England, and he is unsuccessful. But in the series, the Norwegians look like this. And I can only assume that's because Norway is black metal. But in the period, Norway wasn't black metal. Norway was an early medieval European kingdom with a coin-based economy and churches all over the place. Why is Harald Hardrada... Why is he... Why? Why is everything black and on fire? It's really, really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre. And Norwegians, Scandinavians in general... Are you not tired of people depicting you like this? Is the joke not wearing thin at this point? Because it's every single time now, guys. Every single time the Vikings and their descendants are depicted as these, like, blood killing people. Like, they made stuff like this. Guys. Colours. The Old Norse, who notoriously loved bright blue clothing. Like... What's going on? Why are we still depicting people like this? It's so weird, and surely it's offensive. So we've talked about the costuming, we've talked about some of the landscape stuff, like there should be more trees. The idea that the Normans just did a D-Day is almost as stupid as the amphibious landing from that Robin Hood film they made a few years ago. Like, this isn't how it works. Like, this isn't how invasions work. You can't just chuck the boat into the pebbles. Like, there's more to it than that. Also, anyone who has ever waded ashore will tell you that wearing something like this is probably not the way to go. Yes, boat cloaks in the 18th century were quite long, but by and large, they were going into harbours where there were docks. They had piers, guys. They had docks in the 11th century. I'm fairly sure that the entire Norman army didn't just trundle up to the beach, beach their ships, panic the horses when the ships beached, and then do their best to get up the beach. I'm fairly sure there was more logistics involved than that. The Bayeux Tapestry actually shows some of the logistical elements of the Norman invasion, and some of that would have been really nice to see. But instead we get shots of, like, weirdly orange tents and weirdly blue tents, because they've shifted all of the colour sliders when they were editing this and gone, nah, everybody looks bland, but the tents look nice, that'll do. Why are the tents the most colourful thing in this? The tents are the most colourful thing. All the kids look cute. We do not come for the kids. However, one of the things we have to talk about is the comments that I have been getting on my previous video, because an annoying number of them are all people going, well, I couldn't keep watching it because they'd cast a non-white person and it took me out of the history. Your history is wrong. There were non-white people in England in this period. Actually, there were non-white people in England earlier than this. Actually, we have evidence of African people in England from the Bronze Age, which is a long time before this. This is like 1,500, 2,000 years before this. And The people in the comments are always saying stuff like, oh yeah, the problem is that they went woke. No, they didn't go woke. In fact, we have evidence that large percentages of some towns in England in this period had African populations and West Asian populations. Need I remind you all, I do need to, of Saint Adrian of Canterbury, who was born in North Africa in the 7th century, came over to England, was asked to be Archbishop of Canterbury and refused, and became Abbot of St. Peter and St. Paul's in Canterbury, but invited Theodore of Tarsus, which is in what is now Turkey, to come over and be Archbishop of Canterbury instead. And no, they weren't black, but they certainly didn't look like your average dumpy dude from Derbyshire, did they? We have evidence of sub-Saharan African people. We have the body of a woman from, I want to say, Gloucestershire, who died in the late 9th, early 10th century, late teens, early 20s, sub-Saharan African woman. We have her bones. About 10% of the burials from one of the churchyards, one of the burial grounds, I should say, we don't know if there was a church there. 10% of one of the burial grounds in Bamborough, in the northeast of England, are African people. We also have evidence that there were North Africans and southern Iberian people in South Wales in the 7th and 6th centuries. Later on, about 110, 120 years, we have the Domesday Abbreviato. The Domesday Abbreviato is an abbreviated version of the Domesday Book, written in the 1190s to sort of 1210s. And the margin of this book contains this guy, a black guy, wearing a really nice, long, colourful tunic, which suggests that he is at least of middling wealth. And we also have the graves and bones of people from this period from Africa. So the idea that this guy is black being a problem is nonsensical. The idea that Elander Moore, who plays Earl Morcar, is of mixed heritage is a problem is a nonsensical idea. The problem isn't that Elander Moore, who is a fantastic actor, and I've seen him perform on stage, I've had the great privilege of that, the idea that he isn't white is a problem, is wrong. The problem is how they've dressed him, because this is an earl, an Anglo-Saxon nobleman. Number one, the tattoos are obviously made to make him look more foreign, which is a problem in itself. But also they've dressed him in this weird fur thing, this weird primitivizing fur garment that is also barbarianizing him. It's making him look more savage. And that is rage bait. That is a serious issue. That is a bad choice. That is a choice that the costuming department and the director should have rethought and that they should be ashamed of. His wife, whose name doesn't actually, I think, appear in any of the chronicles, is wearing the weird gorget thing. Where did you get that? And was it Game of Thrones? Because this is a bizarre thing. Can we stop with this? It's not a garment. So yeah, we have plentiful evidence of African, both northern and sub-Saharan, because one of the key areas of theology in this time was Ethiopia, and I don't know if you've seen a map, but it's south of the Sahara. We have plentiful evidence of them. We have plentiful evidence of people from West Asia and Africa in Great Britain in this period and earlier. That's not the issue. The issue is everything else in this show is wrong. The costuming is wrong, the history is wrong, and the timescales and the scales of people and everything else just takes you out of it. If you go to an historical reenactment of this period, you will be brought into the period with colour and with skills and with trades and with vibrance and with vigour and with information and with love and with passion from people like me who spend a lot of our time trying to make clothes and items and artefacts from this period to show that it wasn't this bland, grey, grim, miserable time. It was a time of colour and vibrance and experimentation and new ideas and people travelling from country to country and travelling across continents. It was an amazing, colourful time full of drama. And unfortunately, this show kind of sucks all the drama out of it. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much once again for June's Journey for sponsoring. Do check out the link in the description or use the QR code and you can download June's Journey for yourself. Thank you to all of my wonderful patrons. If you want to support the channel financially, we have the Patreon link in the description, or you can buy me a coffee. Diolch yn fawr iawn I bob un ohonych chi. Thank you so much to every one of you. Diolch am wylio. Thank you for watching. And tan o tro nesa, till the next time, hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.